everyone, it's Elizabeth from Elpis Astrology at elpisastrology.com. I've got both my dogs in here, so you may hear them rustling around a little bit. So this video is going to be all about the North Nodes going into Gemini, which starts in May 2020 and then ends it's about a year and a half transit through the sign of Gemini. So it ends in January 2022. It was last here in Gemini, October 2001 till April 2003. Now, when we talk about the north nodes of the moon, we have to also include the south nodes of the moon. And both the north and south nodes of the moon are really just points in space on the moon itself, kind of like the north and south pole on our Earth, but a little different. And it's when these north nodes of the moon or south nodes of the moon intersect with the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun, that we have these eclipses. So I'm sure you've heard that we're going to be having eclipses in both Gemini and Sagittarius. So that's the reason why. So that's just a bit of background. I've written a whole article on this, and I'll see if I can actually include it if it's not too long on YouTube. If not, I'll put a link to it as an actual post on my website itself. Okay, so what does the north node of the moon in Gemini emphasize? Well, it emphasizes the curiosity or curiousness side of our personalities. If you incorporate the south node of the moon, which is in Sagittarius, here we're talking about foreign languages, people, places. It's also things like writing or publishing and our higher, loftier goals. But what really came to me was that this is the diplomat, right? If we had to use sort of what profession would represent this particular time. It also says that during this year and a half, from May 2020 to January 2022, that careers in communication are going to be favored, writing, teaching, presenting, and then of course commerce. And I would say that probably includes e-commerce as well. So anything to do with communicating, so that also can incorporate the internet too. So what I also wanted to note for you was that on the 6th of August 2020, this north nodes of the moon in Gemini will be at 28 degrees and it will be conjuncting Venus. And Venus, of course, now in August is definitely direct. So I would say, just generally speaking, that this is probably going to be, this first half of August, a really important time with regards to a message. Mainly about our love life, but it could be our value systems, all influencing this time period, and it's love as well. So it's love, money, and values. So keep an eye out for that, because it's actually Venus that we're talking about, it conjuncting, the north node's conjuncting. We're really speaking about love. Now, it could also be socializing. So this could be a very active time, generally speaking, to socialize the first half of August. And if everything's going to go the way it's going to go with regards to us not sheltering in place anymore, that could very well be true. Now, this will apply in particular to people who are Geminis, and then people who have their north nodes of the moon natally, i.e. they were born with the north nodes of the moon in Gemini itself. That will be particularly important for you. So what if your north nodes of the moon are in Gemini natally, so you were born with these, and you have this conjunction happening with the north nodes in the universe now also in Gemini, and at some point conjuncting your own north nodes that you were born with. So this brings in actual events and people supporting you and what your causes are, where you want to go in your life, your destiny path. There's a lot more energy that's going to be coming about, and a lot of great situations and people that are going to help you get there. Now, probably the easiest thing to do is to cast your mind, and all of us can do this, cast your mind back to about 19 years ago when we had this here last, back at 2001 time period, was there a theme going on in your life? Now, what you will be looking at, of course, in your own chart is where does 0 to 29 degrees of Gemini fall? So in many cases, it will be more than one house, unless you've done whole house systems. And in that case, it will just be one house. And later on in this video, I'm going to do the ascendants and give you by whole sign, and I'll just give you one house. But you really should be looking at your own chart to see where these fall, because it typically would be in more than one house using other house systems besides the whole house system. I hope that makes sense. If not, just leave a comment and we can talk back and forth. Now, what about like me? You have your south nodes, not the north nodes, but the south nodes in Gemini natally. So this is a time period where, first of all, you'll have to incorporate some of that north node in Gemini together with your own north nodes in Sagittarius, right? So if you've got your south nodes natally in Gemini, the opposite sign is where you got your own north node. So these are sort of two important signs for north nodes to be looking at in your chart. Do you have a north node in Gemini? Do you have a north node in Sagittarius? So for those that have the north nodes in Sagittarius, south nodes in Gemini natally, this really says there's going to be some clarity on your life direction. So you may incorporate things like that are Sagittarius in your new destiny path over the next year and a half. What does that mean? That's foreign people, places, all these, you're going to roll those into this new destiny path and progress more into communication. So this could typically play out like you are more in communication with people in foreign countries and have to do a lot more communicating, maybe presenting things on the web, maybe doing video tutorials that are presented to foreign people, foreign places. But it can also mean diplomatic status, that sort of thing, where you act as either a direct diplomat or something akin to a diplomatic role, where you have to kind of be the in-between, where you have tact and are socially conscious and know how to carry a conversation, not necessarily a deep conversation. Although those could be there too. I'm not saying you can't have those. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. So let's just look at some typical scenarios where these north nodes of the moon could conjunct. Now, when we look at it in terms of levels of importance, we always look at it, this goes for eclipses as well. So we always look at the angles. They're called the angles. And one of the biggest angle, of course, is your midheaven. I mean, your midheaven for sure, as well as your ascendant, sometimes referred to as your rising sign. And then, of course, the IC. So there's just different axes. You've got the axis of the ascendant, descendant, first house, seventh house. And then you've got the midheaven and the IC, which then crosses over your career and your home axis. So these are probably the most important angles to look at with regards to any transit of a north node through your chart. And if you have this north node in Gemini on any of these angles, it would be an important time for you. So let's look at the ascendant. So let's say you do have your ascendant actually in Gemini, and at some point we start, don't forget, the nodes always go backwards. So they always start at 29 degrees and then finish off at 0 degrees. So if it's conjunct the ascendant, this is a time for fortunate events and people that actually come into your life. Now it's opposite the seventh house of partnerships, whether that's marriage or business. So it could be that the other may have the upper hand when we look at the opposite happening when you have the north node of Gemini in the seventh house or descendant. So now we're talking about those people who have Sagittarius rising signs. That means that this north node of Gemini now is in your seventh house. So that puts the emphasis on the other, right? Seventh house is the other. And typically the other is our marriage partner, a business partner, or both of these things. So that's going to be bringing these others more into focus for you, and kind of in some respects giving them the upper hand. Now this could be where your actual marriage partner could come in for you, right? The North Nodes is your destiny, or maybe a favorable business partner, or it could be both. Now, the other one, of course, is the MC, or the midheaven. So you may have great progress in your career. That's mainly what the 10th house is. And, have favor of people basically in the open world, and not just people that you know. Just you generalize that to society on an ongoing basis. So this could have you having people come in that help you, give you a hand up into great success. But this will definitely be people coming in, places coming in, things changing. It's not just this thing in your mind. And that's the big difference between the nodes movements in your chart compared to, say, just a planet, because a planetary energy can operate on many levels, and sometimes it's just internal. Whereas here, when it conjuncts an angle, we're looking at more important things like events and more progress in your career, something noticeable. Okay, so the two luminaries are also important, and in particular the sun is. So if you've got these North Nodes in Gemini conjunct your sun, you may have changes in your job and home. So you'll have maybe people of power. Sun represents power coming in. Specifically, it usually is a male. Powerful people coming into your life to activate your destiny path. But the area is job, career, and home changes. So this could involve a lot of things. It could involve getting a new home. It could involve going to a completely different part of the world. It could be starting a new job in a new country where you've got to leave your old home and get a new one because of this success and great opportunity in a new job. So these are just general aspects. I'm going to go into your ascendants later so you can look at specific areas of your life. And then the next one, of course, is the moon. And here we're looking at the home and the family. In particular, it could be your mother. It could be your parents to some extent. It could be that a nurturing person of significance comes into your life. But it also could be a time where glaringly you have it pointed out to you that your habits are tripping you up, that they're not actually helping you get on your career path, that type of thing. Or some kind of emotional thing happens that triggers you into getting on this destiny path that you're supposed to be on. Okay. So that's it, generally speaking. In my article, I go through all the other planets as well, if they conjunct. I just thought it was a little too much to put in a video. But in my article, you can actually read, say if you've got your Venus, Saturn, Uranus type thing, has these nodes conjuncting them. Now, the only other thing is, if you've got a stellium, so that's like 3 or 4 planets, and you've got these north nodes in Gemini going over them, like hitting them all. They're all in Gemini. And this is possible. You can have an ascendant, moon, sun, Mercury easily, depending when you were born, in Gemini. So this would add even more importance. And then what you have to do is you should really have an astrologer interpret your chart for you in a session. And I'd be happy to do that, of course. But you really need to interpret the, if it's an ascendant, and depending on the planets, you need to be able to interpret the planets correctly and what that means, as well as if it's forming any other things like oppositions, especially oppositions, and perhaps trines as well, with regards to other parts of your chart and how it interacts with this maybe conglomeration of planets in Gemini, because that may be important as well. But I'm just going to remind you that this is just a repeat of what happened 19 years ago. Now, obviously there's other planets like Pluto and Saturn that are in completely different signs and different, forming different aspects themselves. So, but go back to 19 years ago and see if you can remember from October 2001 to April 2003, was there some kind of theme that came up, or even themes that came up for you? Because that'll give you more of a clue with regards to this. Now, just to say that, you know, the nodes, both of them, are viewed as karmic points. So these are things that are meant to happen, that are part of what you need to be doing and a path that you need to be on. So we've got our collective destiny, and then of course we've then got our individual destiny. The collective destiny I've kind of talked about at the beginning of this video, and the individual destinies I'm going to be talking about later when we cover the ascendants. And then there's a third part where you have your own chart, and you can look specifically at where the north nodes, as they travel through Gemini from 29 degrees to 0 degrees over the next 1.5 years, what they aspect in your own personal chart. I hope that makes sense to you. Just trying to help you do your own astrology as best you can. Okay, so let's just start off with Gemini, because this is where the north nodes are. So obviously, this is going to be your first house. Now, it really depends what house system you use, if you use whole house systems or not. But I'm going to read for whole house, okay? So it could be Gemini that it starts in your second house and goes back up to your first, depending where your ascendant is, okay? So at some point, it will certainly be in your first house. And this is all about you, and it's all about you making some pretty major changes to yourself and to your life and to the things around you. So these are not minor things that are going to happen. Okay, so what is typical? You could get married. You could have a baby. You could have another baby. You could get divorced. You could move countries. So it's larger events like that that we're referring to here when we talk about the north nodes in the universe being on your ascendant. Now, like I said, if you happen to have a Gemini ascendant, as well as your north nodes here in Gemini, which people will have, this is an extra emphasis for you with regards to big, big changes. All right. It can also indicate too a marriage partner or business partner comes into focus for you for some reason, for good or ill. It's difficult to say, because when you've got Gemini in your first house, you then automatically have, or Gemini North Node, you automatically have the South Nodes by transit sitting in your 7th house. And usually the South Nodes are things that we default to, that we're good at. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at this time, you're now being asked to either incorporate those things into you, because now the first house is all about you, right? And not focus so much on your partner. So that may involve you releasing some aspects with regards to your partner, whether that's marriage partner or business partner or both. For Cancer, this is your 12th house and your 6th house. And, you know, don't forget that also we have eclipses happening, right? So we not only have these nodes in Gemini and Sagittarius, but we have eclipses happening either in Gemini or in Sagittarius for the next about 1.5 years too. So these herald important times in the particular house that you have them fall in. So for Cancer, your 12th house is activated by the North Node. So this really says to me that this is a time for you to be developing your spirituality at a very high level. It's not necessarily a time when you go out into the world and start really, getting up on your pulpit and, giving big speeches. But because it's in Gemini, and then, of course, it's in your opposite sign of your 6th house, which is day-to-day work, health, and that, and where the eclipses happen, it could be that you incorporate some kind of spirituality that you've not done in a more consistent basis with regards to what you've been doing in your day-to-day job. I mean, that's intuitively what I get. I know it's the health house too, but it could follow that as a result of you, doing this real serious spirituality, and this it could be astrology for that matter. I've got my ascendant here in Cancer. that you can now earn more money in your day-to-day job as a result of really focusing in on the spiritual side of yourself. Now, it could also go another way. It could go where you absolutely need to have rest and really need to calm your mind down. And that may help you with your health, which, as I mentioned earlier, is also your 6th house. So, and it could go all those ways, by the way. Okay, that's Cancer. So for Leo, it's your 11th house of groups and friends, your hopes and wishes. And then it's kind of deactivating to some extent your 5th house, which is children, your creativity, and romance. So it's taking all those things that you've learned over the past 19 years with regards to creativity. And I'm big on expressing your authentic self. So expressing your authentic self, maybe your children, and incorporating that now into how you interact with your friends and groups. Typically, this would be a moment where, or a line in the sand, where you change your groups that you associate with, because maybe it's not helping you express that creativity that you've been developing for the past 19 years. And you change up your friends and your actual groups that you belong to. And things and people come in for you to assist you with that, right? The other thing is that, you know, as a result of you expressing your authentic self, you realize that the hopes and wishes that you've had for the past 19 years aren't yours at all, and that you need to change those, and that becomes a big focus for you over the next year and a half. For Virgo, it's your 10th house, and that is your career. So it could be that for the last 19 years, you've had to attend either to somebody in the home, something in the home, that took up all your energy, and haven't really been able to focus on the career that you wanted. Well, this is another line in the sand for you, where you're going to now be given many opportunities to develop the career that you want. And these will be people, places, and things that come in, very fortunate events that help you do this. But it's going to involve you having to now let go something in your 4th house of home. House of home, it's your mother, it's your parents to some extent, it's your habits. So maybe you've got to let go of some habits that you've been hanging on to for the past 19 years, and now concentrate more on better habits that support your career itself. But your home is going to take second place to your career right now. Now, the other thing that could manifest too is, as a result of a boost in your career, you have to move. Right? That's a typical thing that could happen to you. Yeah. For Libra, it's your 9th house. And, you know, the 9th house is ruled by Sagittarius and Jupiter. So this is the house of higher learning. It's foreign people, foreign things. It's our loftier goals. What legacy do I want to leave? It's also publishing. So there's actually quite a few different areas that this could cover. Now, it's in contrast to the 3rd house where your South Node is, which you've been doing for the past while. And the 3rd house really is that creating that piece of writing that now you're going to publish. In fact, that's the first thing I thought of, is you finally publishing something that you've been working on for a long time, that you get the opportunity to do that. It could also be that, depending how old you are and your inclination, that as a result of maybe doing some small learnings, maybe just online stuff, that you decide to take the step to go into a more advanced degree. That's also the 9th house. It can also be commercial ventures that you've been doing. You're now able to take overseas. So it could be that you were doing local commerce of some sort, and now you're stepping it up, and you've got some international connections and international people that come to light that help promote these types of things now internationally. For Scorpio, it's your 8th house, and Scorpio, you rule that 8th house, so this has a little more meaning for you. The 8th house, really, I see this as you being given opportunities to start really saving your money and investing. Typically that would be you having maybe an opportunity in a new job to have a 401k, where you make the decision to put in your maximum or more amount than what you're matched at. Or maybe there's an inheritance that comes in for you that allows you to do some things that you've not been able to do before. but I would say that most of those things that you should be doing is saving your money. This is in contrast to the second house, where it's the money that you earn. So this could be you the past 19 years just really working hard and maybe just meeting your obligations financially, and now you're being given the opportunity to take some of that money and put it in the 8th house of investments. It also could be another thing. The second house is also your values and love too. So it could be that, you know, you've been going through a long period of really accepting yourself and literally loving yourself. And the 8th house has some epiphany moment where you realize how much you've changed, and you only reach out to those things that are actually valuing you, and your psychological underpinnings change to the positive. For Sagittarius, it's your 7th house, and of course 7th house is partners, whether it's business partners, marriage partners, your therapist, your lawyer. So this just brings more focus on this area for you. This, I mean, on the surface, this could be a time when you decide to get married, that you meet the love of your life. And that's exciting. Where before, what you were doing was really focusing on you and trying to improve yourself, with the south nodes being in the 1st house. So this is a time period where you have less focus on yourself, where maybe you've been improving yourself over the past 19 years ago, and you're vibrating to such a level where you attract the right partner in for yourself. That's kind of intuitively what I'm getting for you, Sagittarius. But it could also mean that you magnetize somebody in as a business partner that is absolutely awesome for you, that really values not only who you are, but what you have to offer. So look for those types of people and opportunities coming in for you, Sagittarius, over the next year and a half. For Capricorn, it is your 6th house that you're going to be putting more emphasis on. So the 6th house, we spoke of that earlier. You'll be putting more emphasis, I feel, here on your health. Now, you've had a pounding along with Cancer with regards to, but especially you with Pluto, Saturn, and Saturn's going to be going back in there too, all in your sign, and then Jupiter coming in to add expansion of all those things with both those planets. Could also have brought in some luck for you as well, or at least some lucky opportunities. But now what this is doing really is, it's saying that where you're working is important, where your health is important. What is happening with your health? How's your diet? How's your exercise regimen? I really feel for you, especially Capricorn, with all the things you've been going through for years, and I mean years. And that's not going to let up for another couple of years with Pluto for sure, that you're going to take control of your health in such a positive way. You may get some guru coming in for you. So it might not just be, you know, you taking hold of your, just, you know, going to the gym and improving your actual eating and what you put in nutritionally. But you could notch it up and go for psychological good health too. Where you really, over the next year and a half, come out shining brightly. This is in contrast to the 12th house, which is where you were really hiding out. and maybe for good reason. Maybe you had to look after somebody who was very ill. Or you were dealing with some kind of situation where you were not able to come out more and do things. Perhaps this was you literally working in a hospital and you were just stuck. You just had to get, or research in a hospital, that type of thing. Or that you really just needed rest over the past while, where you were doing a lot of contemplating, and maybe that was spiritual contemplating too. But now you're being asked to bring whatever you've been learning into that 6th house of your health, as well as your day-to-day job. For Aquarius, it is your 5th house that you're going to be looking at here. And the 5th house is asking, the nodes here, it's asking you to be authentic and real with yourself. Now, Aquarius is known for being different, and it's in that difference that makes you such a unique and wonderful person to contribute to mankind. because you're always having everyone's interests in your mind. You're not just trying to take one side or the other, but unlike Libra, you're looking at it more from a cerebral standpoint and wanting to be friends with everybody and make sure that everyone gets what they deserve. And, you know, compassion and humanitarianism runs through your veins for sure. And so this is saying, be your authentic self and don't be afraid of being who you are. This unique self that you are is going to help you at this point in time over the next 1.5 years to truly express who you are. People are going to accept you and want you exactly the way you are. Now this is opposed to what you've been doing in your 11th house. So that's more falling into what are my groups saying, what are my friends saying, and going along maybe more with what they're doing and learning things from them and adapting yourself to them. Now it's time for you to stand up and show your uniqueness and be proud. It's also children, the house of children, so it's possible that you could have, and maybe even unexpectedly, have a child come into your life. It's also your own business, so that's the other thing that you could develop over the next 1.5 years is your own business as well. But it really does go back to that whole expressing your authentic self. With Pisces, it's your 4th house of home. So this is going to have you where you've been maybe focusing on your career for the past 19 years or so. Now you got to bring it down into the home. And it could be something that it's a retirement, that you decide, I'm done with the career. I really want to now focus on my home, or I bring my career into my home, or I do a hobby in my home, or I stop working completely and I go into my home. Or something happens in the home where you're required to be there a lot more. So that's what this is saying for you. But previous to this, you've been spending a lot of time in your career and putting a lot of effort in there. This could manifest, like I said earlier, you bringing your career into your home. Now I'm making this, when am I making this? Sort of mid-April 2020. So there's a lot of us that are working from our homes. But this could become more of a permanent thing for you, where you actually find that you're able to really do your work more effectively and have a better career in your home base as opposed to going to an office. Or it could just mean that you decide to do your home and not do career anymore. Now I'm also thinking this could be real estate as well, because the 10th house of career and the 4th house of home. Could it be that you decide that you want to go into the real estate as a career? That could be also on the cards for you too. When we look at Aries, it is your 3rd house. Now the 3rd house is a number of things. Ostensibly it's mainly about communications, any kind of communications. The way you think, the way you write, the way you speak, the way you present things. But it also represents your neighborhood, and it also represents your siblings. So all of these things could be highlighted now for you over the next 1.5 years as something important, especially with regards to you manifesting your destiny. Whereas before, you were in the 9th house. So this may have you literally been finishing off a degree. That's a typical thing. You've just finished off a degree. You maybe have finished a publication. You may have been dealing a lot with people, foreign people and foreign things and lands. And now what you're doing is incorporating that into maybe more teaching. So maybe you come up with some unique modules, sort of like from an e-commerce side, that you use to teach people that are foreign or that live in foreign lands, or that you set up some kind of system where you are teaching and presenting to people, and maybe even creating modules and things that you give to foreign people and foreign places. Now don't forget that foreign people and foreign things are people who don't live in the country you were born in. So a lot of people don't live where they were born. So even the people in the country, like let's just say you were born in England and you now live in the USA. So technically speaking, the people in the USA are foreign people for you. So do keep that in mind for people who are living in a country that is not where they were born. So I see that happening for you. But it could be that your siblings become much more important to you, or that there's some kind of important things that are happening in your neighborhood, especially with regards to like communicating. Maybe you become some kind of coordinator for whatever reason in your neighborhood, and that's part of your destiny path right now for the next 1.5 years. But certainly communication is going to be at the forefront of whatever you do over the next 1.5 years. And so polishing up those skills are going to be very important for you. And maybe some of that higher education that you did in the past, or maybe some of the publications that you wrote, are going to come in handy, especially with regards to how you communicate about them. So when we look at Taurus, we're looking at your second house. And the second house, you rule the second house as a sign. So the second house talks about your values. It is also, right now where Uranus is. So there may be some bigger shakeups that have already happened in your second house of earned income, your value systems, and love and beauty. So Uranus is acting a little more unexpectedly, and kind of a bolt out of the blue type stuff. It's adding that energy on top of having your actual second house then being activated by this eclipse. So, the eclipses are shaking you, or the Uranus in Taurus is shaking you up. And then these nodes in your second house is more shaking up your value system. It's shaking up the money that you earn. But I think it's your values. I think at this point in time, it's you are going to be required to put more emphasis on what is a value to you. And I would say especially you valuing yourself. The value of self is going to become very apparent to you over the next 1.5 years. Now this may be tied in with your income. There's a school of thought that says what you think about yourself, how you value yourself, translates into a tangible value, which is money. So the second house also represents the money that you earn. So as a result of you going through this process of valuing yourself, you end up earning more money. But you could initially lose a source of income. That's the other thing that this could speak to. Now, what you're letting go of is that 8th house. The 8th house is inheritances. It is any money that you share. It's investments, it's your 401ks, that type of thing. But it's also your psychological self too. It's ruled by Scorpio. So it seems to me that there's money tied in here. You may have to use that money that you've been investing and saving over the past many years to tide you over because of a job loss, or a job that you let go of. So because you want to figure out something more valuable for yourself. And I kind of see that playing out for you over the next 1.5 years. That whole theme of you valuing yourself and having a lovely side effect of having an even better job with a lot more money as a result of that valuing of yourself. Okay, I think I've covered all the signs. It'll be fun to have some dialogue about this, to learn where everyone has this Gemini North nodes. That's the most important, but the South nodes are important as well in Sagittarius. And let's just follow this all the way through over the next 1.5 years. Please take care of yourself, and I will see you again when I do my June 2020 video, and we'll talk about the eclipses that are coming up and the Venus retrograde that will stop in June as well. Thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe if you like these videos. It really helps me on my channel. And if you can donate, please donate. I've got a donate button on my website. Take care, everybody, and bye for now.